My name is Susan Thorne. In 1999, I was an acquaintance of David Thorne and am now David's advocate and wife. David was 26 years old when he found he had a 2-year-old son by a former girlfriend, Yvonne Lane. Yvonne was supporting her 5 children on welfare and was ordered to give the names of the fathers of the children so support payments could be established. A year later, in March of 1999, the child's mother was found murdered in her home. Detectives immediately focused on David, despite his willingness to be interviewed and to aid in their investigation. David had a solid alibi and a good relationship with both the victim and their child, but was continually badgered and harassed by local police. When they couldn't make a case against him, they manufactured one instead. David is a victim of law enforcement and legal corruption. Out of ideas within a few weeks of the murder and with no feasible suspects, detectives found an 18-year-old casual acquaintance of David's and scared the young man into confessing to the murder of Yvonne Lane, a crime he did not commit. They spit on him and screamed at him while he sat sobbing and shaking in disbelief. They wanted him to say he killed Yvonne and that David hired him to do it. They couldn't place David at the scene, so they got a vulnerable, mentally and emotionally disabled man to confess and to implicate him. After being accused and intimidated by 3 detectives, the young man, Joseph Welks, signed a confession and accepted a life sentence rather than the promise of Ohio's electric chair if he did not comply. Joseph did not have a trial. He did not have an attorney. He had testified against David Thorne because they told him that if he didn't, they'd light him up like the 4th of July and he was too young to die. Joseph did not kill Yvonne Lane, and David Thorne did not tell him to. The only evidence against David Thorne is Joe's testimony, bolstered by the testimony of a felon and the perjured testimony of the felon's girlfriend. The crime Joseph confessed to and implicated David in did not even closely match the physical evidence or the crime scene photos. The only fact he got right is that the murder weapon was a knife, which was evident from the wound. Joe's police statement consists of the detectives telling Joe what happened and of him giving short answers of agreement. Officers say that the victim was cut while standing in front of the sliding glass doors in her dining room. While giving his statement, Joe got confused and said that instead she was cut in a sitting position on the living room couch. The blood evidence clearly shows the victim was cut standing in front of the sliding glass doors. No photos of the dining room, the actual scene of the attack, were shown to jurors. Joe said, "I don't know" or "I don't recall" 138 times during his trial testimony at David's trial. David Thorne's trial attorney was unprepared and unproductive, presenting literally no defense. He was chastised numerous times by the judge for mumbling and speaking incoherently. He advised David and his family that David would be found guilty to prepare themselves for him to lose his mind and die in prison. David was found guilty after a 5-day trial during which his attorney sat silently next to him, rumpled and smelling of alcohol. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. At 26 years old, David's life was taken away for a crime he was not present for or involved in, which was confessed to by a scared young man who also had no involvement. Why? Because of lazy, incompetent detectives who took a dislike to the target of their misdirected and unsubstantiated investigation, and ultimately because of the indifference of the legal system that allowed them to further this injustice. David was later sentenced to life without the possibility of parole and spends his time at London Correctional Institution. I became his advocate when his grandparents approached me and asked me to help David. I have been pushing appeals through for 13 years. We were just denied our federal appeal on April 4th. Barring consideration from the U.S. Supreme Court, David will spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime he did not commit.